The classroom was silent, yet the stillness was alive with anticipation. Outside the reinforced windows, the world beyond bore scars of harsh survival, winds that could shred flesh, temperatures that could freeze life in minutes, and a sky that had witnessed centuries of human defiance against impossible odds. Inside, a human student moved with a quiet confidence that betrayed a lifetime honed on worlds that demanded strength, resilience, and an intelligence sharpened by necessity. Survival was never taught here through lectures or exercises alone, it was etched into every glance, every breath, every controlled heartbeat. A presence entered the room, cold and deliberate, an intruder whose reputation preceded them, a killer trained in alien and merciless arts. A predator used to the unquestioned fear of those who faced them. Yet the human before him did not flinch. Instead, a smile, faint but unmistakable, curved across a face hardened by trials beyond the comprehension of ordinary beings. Humanity had endured countless threats, empires, and predators, yet here was a testament to what made them different, the defiance that thrived when others assumed dominance, the killer's eyes measured, calculated, searching for fear that never came. The Deathworlder, standing as if the room itself were their domain, radiated control not through menace but through the quiet assurance of experience. Humanity had learned that true power was not in the first strike, nor the immediate reaction, it was in understanding, anticipation, and the patience to watch the universe reveal its patterns. In a single glance, the human assessed the threat, every possible motion, every potential advantage, every weakness, yet there was no panic, no hesitation, only clarity. Time slowed. The killer lunged, movements precise, meant to overwhelm and destroy. But the human moved with a rhythm that defied expectation, exploiting every shift in balance, every opening, turning aggression into opportunity. The walls themselves seemed to shrink as humanity's defiance and skill coalesced into a single expression of controlled power. Here, in a space designed for learning, survival became art, and intelligence became the deadliest weapon. Outside, the skies over Deathworld planets were reflected in the human's eyes, storms that shaped warriors, landscapes that demanded cunning, atmospheres that tested limits of endurance. Every step, every breath, every calculated pivot was informed by a life forged in the crucible of impossible worlds. The killer, despite centuries of training, had met a species that could anticipate, adapt, and overcome with instinct amplified by intelligence. The first strike met its counter, the second followed the rhythm of prediction, the third unraveled before it could manifest. Humanity did not strike to destroy recklessly, they struck with understanding, with precision, and with a moral clarity that transformed the act of survival into a statement of mastery. In that classroom, the impossible became possible, and a predator who had known fearlessness now faced it reflected in the eyes of one who had survived worlds designed to kill. The intruder hesitated, sensing that the human before him was no ordinary opponent. Every move, every shift in stance, was deliberate, calculated, and yet effortless. The Deathworlder's presence filled the room, not with menace, but with certainty, a quiet command that made hesitation a liability for anyone daring enough to act. Humanity had survived planets where the air could kill, storms could rip continents apart, and predators could outthink instinct itself. Here, that legacy manifested as a calm that could unnerve the most confident killer. The killer lunged again, faster, sharper, but the human's reflexes were honed beyond mere speed. Movements flowed like water around rocks, exploiting momentum, angle, and gravity in ways that seemed impossible to anyone untrained in survival on a death world. Each dodge, each pivot, each subtle displacement of weight conveyed experience beyond years, an instinct informed by both biology and strategy. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to adapt, and here was proof in living motion, turning threat into opportunity with a grace that was almost surgical. Eyes scanned the room, noting every potential hazard, every possible advantage. Tables, chairs, even the faint cracks in the floor became instruments of survival or tools for subtle leverage. The killer realized too late that fear alone would not dictate outcomes here. It was understanding, anticipation, and a mind capable of perceiving possibilities invisible to ordinary perception. Humanity had survived empires, alien predators, and cosmic phenomena by reading patterns before they fully manifested, and this skill was on full display. A strike landed, but not where expected. The Deathworlder's laughter echoed, low and controlled, a sound of pure defiance that carried centuries of survival. Every motion was a lesson in precision, every counter an exhibition of intellect fused with experience. The killer's assaults, once confident and relentless, began to falter, every attempt anticipated, every opening closed before it could appear. Here, the predator was becoming the pupil, and the human the master of a deadly dance that had no room for error. The room itself seemed to shrink under the weight of humanity's mastery. Shadows shifted as moves were predicted before they occurred, balance exploited, momentum redirected, and energy conserved. The Deathworlder's eyes gleamed not with rage or fear, but with the calm understanding of one who had survived storms, worlds, and creatures far more lethal than any classroom intruder. Every attack reflected the killer's skill, yet every defense demonstrated humanity's singular combination of intelligence, resilience, and moral clarity. Even as the intruder paused, reconsidering strategy, the Deathworlder advanced, not recklessly, but with deliberate intent. Every step was a statement, every breath a demonstration of human superiority in observation, calculation, and courage. The lesson was unmistakable: survival was not only about strength, speed, or aggression, it was about comprehension, anticipation, and the willingness to act decisively when others hesitated. Humanity had survived Deathworlds, and now even here, they thrived. The killer's confidence began to waver. Subtle cracks forming in the mask of control. Each movement the Deathworlder executed was more than reaction, it was foresight made flesh. The room, once a battlefield of tension and threat, now became a stage for a display of intelligence honed through centuries of survival. Every angle, every shadow, every flicker of the intruder's intent was anticipated, redirected, and neutralized without unnecessary force. Humanity had always survived where logic alone failed, and here was proof: instinct fused with calculation, courage tempered by wisdom. A chair toppled, scattering across the floor, but it was used with purpose, creating openings, distracting the intruder's senses, forcing them to miscalculate. Every counter was seamless, turning aggression into opportunity, a choreography that could have been mistaken for art. The killer moved with precision, yet each strike only reinforced the human's mastery. Survival on a death world demanded rapid adaptation, situational awareness beyond ordinary perception, and an understanding that danger was never singular. It was a web of possibilities, all of which could be exploited. The Deathworlder's gaze was steady, calculating, reading more than body language, perceiving intention, timing, and probability. Each movement carried not only physical power but a cognitive depth that the intruder could neither predict nor match. Humanity's legacy of resilience, intelligence, and moral clarity became tangible, a force more formidable than raw strength. Every instinctive strike was countered, every strategic thought anticipated, until the killer realized that fearlessness alone could not conquer a species tempered by worlds meant to destroy them. Moments of silence punctuated the engagement. The intruder paused, reassessing, while the Deathworlder's posture remained relaxed yet commanding. This was not chaos, it was comprehension, observation, and mastery, demonstrating a principle that humanity had known for generations. Survival was not just endurance, but understanding, anticipation, and decisive action guided by intelligence and ethics. Even the smallest misstep was exploited, every hesitation magnified, every assumption challenged. With each exchange, the intruder's attacks grew erratic, revealing frustration and confusion. The Deathworlder moved with a rhythm that was both patient and lethal, turning momentum against the opponent, exploiting every minor error with precision. The classroom, a space meant for learning, had become a crucible of skill, resilience, and human ingenuity. The lesson was undeniable: humanity did not rely on fear, intimidation, or raw power. They relied on comprehension, foresight, and the courage to act when others faltered. Finally, the killer's assault faltered entirely, leaving them exposed to the quiet authority of the human. The Deathworlder's laughter, low and controlled, resonated through the room, not cruel, but triumphant, a celebration of survival, skill, and intellect. Every strike had been a test, every move a measure, and every response a demonstration of what it meant to be human on a world designed to challenge life itself. Humanity had survived, not by chance, but by mastery, defiance, and understanding. The intruder staggered back, realization dawning too late. This human was not simply reacting, they were orchestrating every move, reading intentions, and shaping outcomes with the precision of a mind forged on worlds that demanded perfection. The classroom, once confined and ordinary, had become a theater of human ingenuity and defiance, where instinct met intellect, and courage met foresight. Humanity's legacy of surviving deathworlds, planets that would have annihilated lesser species, manifested in each measured step, each controlled breath, each pivot that turned threat into opportunity. The killer struck again, faster, more violently, but the Deathworlder anticipated, intercepted, and redirected with effortless mastery. Momentum became a weapon, gravity an ally, and every environmental detail, cracked tiles, overturned chairs, faint reflections in glass, was exploited with lethal grace. Humanity had always turned adversity into advantage. Here, they did so with a clarity that rendered centuries of the intruder's training insufficient. Every strike that had been intended to intimidate instead became a demonstration of human adaptability, intelligence, and resilience. Time seemed to bend around the human's movements, each second stretching to encompass calculation, anticipation, and flawless execution. The killer's confidence eroded further as attempts to dominate were met with precision counters that left openings closed before they could manifest. Humanity's strength was not in the initial force of confrontation, but in the seamless combination of perception, strategy, and moral clarity. Even in moments of quiet between strikes, the Deathworlder's eyes scanned, assessed, and adapted, converting the classroom into a dynamic map of probability and opportunity. The intruder attempted a desperate feint, shifting tactics with sudden ferocity. But the human remained a step ahead, reading subtle cues, muscle tension, posture, eye movement, and converting every small signal into actionable advantage. It was not speed alone, nor strength alone, that won the encounter. It was the mastery of comprehension, the application of intelligence under pressure, and the courage to act decisively when outcomes hung in balance. Humanity had survived environments and threats that would have erased lesser beings. Now, that experience translated into dominance in a space few would have imagined. A low, controlled laugh escaped the Deathworlder, not cruel, but filled with the quiet satisfaction of mastery. The intruder faltered, unsure, overextended, and exposed. Every strike that could have ended the human was anticipated, nullified, or turned against the attacker. The classroom became a testament to the human mind and body operating in concert, a demonstration that defiance, understanding, and adaptability could conquer even the deadliest threats. Humanity did not merely survive, they redefined the limits of possibility in that confined arena. As the engagement reached its conclusion, the Deathworlder moved with the calm of one who had endured storms, predators, and death itself, standing resolute while the intruder hesitated, defeated not by brutality, but by intellect and indomitable human will. Every movement, every breath, every observation reflected the essence of survival honed on worlds where failure was never an option. Humanity had transformed confrontation into art, danger into clarity, and fear into an instrument of mastery. The killer's attacks grew more erratic, desperation creeping into movements once precise and confident. Each strike the Deathworlder met with the calm certainty of someone who had survived not merely through force, but through calculation, foresight, and understanding of both environment and opponent. The classroom, now a crucible of tension, shadows, and movement, reflected humanity's ability to adapt instantly, to turn chaos into clarity, and to transform threat into opportunity. Every motion conveyed the legacy of Deathworlds, planets that demanded cunning, courage, and intelligence for mere survival. The intruder lunged with renewed aggression, aiming for speed and strength, yet every attempt was anticipated. The human moved fluidly, exploiting momentum, gravity, and subtle shifts in posture. Tables became shields, overturned chairs became tools, every minor detail a potential advantage. Humanity had always survived extremes, storms that could rip continents apart, predators that could outthink instinct, and adversaries who assumed superiority. And here, all those lessons coalesced into flawless, lethal awareness. The Deathworlder's mastery turned each desperate strike into a demonstration of intellect applied under pressure. Moments of stillness punctuated the storm of action. The human's gaze scanned the room, absorbing data in an instant, the distance between strikes, the angle of attacks, the rhythm of breathing. Every subtle twitch or hesitation of the intruder became a signal, every motion a clue. Humanity's advantage was in perception, in reading probability, in turning foresight into action before the opponent even recognized the opening. Survival had always been about more than speed or force. It had always been about comprehension, adaptation, and decisive execution. The killer tried a final, calculated feint, a move meant to overwhelm, but the Deathworlder met it with precision, turning aggression back upon the assailant. The classroom, with its mundane desks and cracked floors, became a battlefield transformed by intelligence, resilience, and human audacity. Each action was deliberate, each response exact, a ballet of defiance that left no opening unexploited. Humanity did not merely counter threats, they redefined the rules of engagement with every subtle decision. The intruder faltered entirely, exposed not to violence alone but to the undeniable presence of human mastery. The Deathworlder's low, controlled laugh echoed once more, a statement of triumph not born of cruelty, but of skill, intellect, and unshakable confidence. Every previous threat had been absorbed, understood, and neutralized, leaving only the realization that this species could survive, adapt, and dominate where others would fail. Humanity's legacy was written in their actions, defiance, intelligence, and courage applied with unerring precision. With the final strike anticipated and nullified, the Deathworlder stood calm, eyes steady, presence unyielding. The intruder, once confident and threatening, was left to reckon with a force that could not be intimidated, outpaced, or underestimated. Humanity had demonstrated that survival was not simply endurance, but comprehension, courage, and moral clarity, the tools that had honed them into masters of the impossible. The intruder slumped, exhaustion and disbelief etched across features once full of menace. The classroom, still, reflected the calm authority of the Deathworlder, whose movements had been a seamless fusion of instinct, intellect, and experience. Humanity had survived worlds that would kill without mercy, predators that defied logic, and adversaries who assumed dominance by force alone. Here, that legacy manifested fully, a presence that rendered fear irrelevant and demonstrated that mastery was born from understanding, anticipation, and courage. The Deathworlder moved deliberately, scanning the room with steady eyes, ensuring no threat remained, no hidden advantage overlooked. Each breath, each step, each subtle motion carried centuries of survival distilled into human action. The intruder realized, finally, that this was no ordinary opponent. This was a species that could read, adapt, and respond to every nuance of conflict, turning aggression into opportunity and danger into triumph. Humanity did not rely on chaos or intimidation, they relied on comprehension, foresight, and the courage to act decisively. The room seemed to settle, the tension dissipating like smoke in the still air. Shadows cast by the scattered desks and flickering lights reflected the quiet magnitude of human capability. The Deathworlder's calm, measured presence reminded that intelligence guided by courage was a weapon beyond any blade or projectile. Every subtle detail, the tilt of a chair, the position of a desk, the flicker of a reflection, had been noted, assessed, and utilized. Survival on a Deathworld had sharpened perception to a level where nothing escaped notice, and every action became a calculated advantage. Even in moments of quiet, the human mind remained vigilant. Patterns, potential threats, contingencies, all were processed in real time, transforming observation into mastery. Humanity's advantage was not only physical prowess or reflexive skill, but the ability to anticipate, to comprehend, and to act with purpose. The intruder, who had entered with confidence and lethality, now confronted the reality of facing a species whose mastery of survival transcended fear, aggression, and instinct. The Deathworlder's laugh, low and controlled, echoed softly, not cruel, but triumphant, a declaration that intelligence, courage, and foresight could render even the deadliest threats irrelevant. Humanity had survived worlds designed to kill, creatures engineered to dominate, and threats beyond reckoning. Here, they had demonstrated the pinnacle of that legacy, a quiet, unstoppable mastery that transformed danger into clarity, threat into opportunity, and confrontation into a testament of human ingenuity. As the intruder withdrew, defeated yet alive, the Deathworlder remained poised, a living emblem of resilience, intellect, and defiance. Humanity had turned a single encounter into a demonstration of what survival truly meant, not mere endurance, but mastery of environment, opponent, and circumstance alike. Every move, every breath, every observation reinforced that the species forged in adversity was unstoppable when guided by understanding and courage.